welcome to the One Lonely Owl podcast. My name is Terry and I will be your host. Please, before we get started, please understand that this is my first time doing a regular podcast video in 6 months or more, so I'd like you to bear with me a little bit. It's been a while, so I will be checking out my notes, making sure I don't miss anything, and probably tripping up along the way. So bear with me, and thanks so much for joining. So if you are new here, my name is Terry, and this is a podcast primarily about knitting, although I do talk about other random things, including some things around my life and my recent experience being a cancer patient. I sometimes talk about tea or shows that I'm watching, other things that might interest you or might not. And I have been doing this podcast for, actually it'll be 2 years this summer, and I have taken a recent break, as you know from my previous videos if you've watched them. I've taken a recent break because of some health-related concerns that I was having. So if you're interested in any of that, please go back and watch previous videos. I won't get into too much of my health-related journey in this video, quite honestly, because I covered it extensively in my previous video, but also because I have quite a bit of stuff to cover knitting-related wise today. I will also give the disclaimer that I may not be doing a ton of editing to this video as I previously have been. I'm trying out something new. I really did enjoy putting in all of the other things in my videos, but I have been really just focusing on getting these up and on the web so that you guys can watch them if you are so inclined. And I'd rather get them up and not have some of the bells and whistles than be sort of stuck and not get them up at all. So for now, at least, there may not be a lot of extra things in the videos, but we'll see if that continues. So this is episode 22. I'm filming on March 26th, Wednesday, March 26th. And like I said, episode 22 of the One Lonely Owl podcast, where we're going to be talking a lot about the things that I have been doing since the last time I did a real podcast video, which, like I said, was about 6 months ago, September of 2024. The segments that I typically do, I'm going to mention them just so that for continuity's sake, but I may not be covering something in each of them. So obviously completed the intro. The first segment I typically talk about mug up, and I usually speak about something that I've been drinking. I am drinking a lot of water. I've talked about my kidneys in previous episodes, and water is my kind of go-to. I have a water bottle right here in case I need it. And I do drink tea still, but I don't drink as much as I used to. So this one may be a dry episode. The next segment is called La. La is where we talk about the thing that I'm wearing. Today I'm wearing the Harvest cardigan by Tin Can Knits. It was completed, I don't know, last year or the year before. A girlfriend and I, we did a bit of a knit along, and she knit one in a teal green color, and I knit this one in sort of this tan brown. I love this sweater. I will say, I don't know if it's the pattern or if it's me, but I do find that it does fall sort of off the back of my shoulders a little bit. So I oftentimes find that I'm sort of pulling it forward and pulling it down so that it stays on my shoulders. I don't know if that's just me or if it is the pattern, like I said. I really enjoyed knitting this, really enjoyed the pattern. This yarn, I believe, was Cascade 220. I'll make any corrections if I can find them in the description box below. But yeah, the Harvest cardigan by Tin Can Knits. Quite enjoyed knitting it, really like wearing it. The one little thing, like I said, sometimes I find it slips off the back of my shoulders. I'm not sure if that's me or if it was the pattern, but just wanted to bring that to your attention. The next segment is called What Ya At? What Ya At is, I didn't mention this at the top of the show. I'm from Newfoundland originally. I live in central Alberta, Canada right now, but I was born and raised in Newfoundland, and a lot of the language that you'll hear me use for the topics or the headings of the segments are words from Newfoundland. So la in Newfoundland is short for look. look at what she's wearing. That's sort of where I went with that one. And then what are you at is a common phrase used to ask, what are you doing? So what am I currently working on? So what are you at? They're my, my whips. So I have a few to share. The first one, I've talked about these a million times. These are Grandma's favorite dishcloth. I always kind of have one or two of these on the go because, quite honestly, I like them and I like having them. I also know a lot of family and friends that really enjoy them, so I always have a bit of a back stash on the go. I gave away my most recent stash of these to my mom's first cousin. Hi, Bonnie, if you're watching. She really loves them, and hers were all sort of becoming a little ragged and worse for wear, so I sent her home the whole stash that I had. And then at Christmas time, my best friend really enjoys them as well, so I made her a bunch out of a ball of cotton that she had bought. She just asked me to make her a couple, and I made the whole ball, so that's what I did for that. So yeah, I've always got a Grandma's favorite dishcloth on the needles. This is with Lily Sugar and Cream, I think it's called. I have a massive stash of cotton that I collected over the years, so I'm just sort of working my way through that. So I've got one of those on the needles. I have a sweater. This sweater is in my, I won't say the words because they are swear words, but I will see if I can get up close enough that you can see what the pinstripes say. This is a bag by Shannon. Shannon is a wonderful bag maker, a wonderful maker in Calgary, Alberta. She is my favorite bag maker. I like her as a human as well as a maker. She's quite lovely. So this bag, I think I bought at the, not this past year, but the year prior, the Polka Dot Creek and Creekside, or Creek Gardens Crafts do the Creekside Yarn Festival, and I purchased this bag from there. It's quite a lovely bag, and it fits a whole sweater project quite easily. This is the Fern and Feather by Jennifer Steingass, knit with Polka Dot Creek worsted weight in the colorway Moss, which is the green color, and Natural, which is the contrast color. I started this probably, I'm going to guess just after Christmas, maybe around Christmas. I'm not totally sure. I wasn't really doing a lot of knitting in the last few months because, again, previous video explains all this in detail, but I'd had some arthritis symptoms, so my hands were not doing very well. So I hadn't really been knitting for a while. I picked this up, started it, and I sort of zoomed through the body quite quickly. So I'll show you a close-up. I am now down to the ribbing. I have sort of paused on it because I can't decide if I want to make it a little bit longer, and I can't decide if I want to just make the ribbing a little bit longer, or if I want to rip back the ribbing, make the stockinette a little bit longer, and then do the ribbing. So I'm sort of at a standstill for this one at the moment, and then I'll obviously just have to go back, pick up the sleeves, and finish the sleeves for that. I'm also, this is a superwash, so I'm also a little bit cautious about making it too long. I want to make sure it sort of comes below my belt. I like it to be at least at the top of my hips, probably even a little bit lower. But I just can't quite decide. So like I said, I've just sort of put this on hold for now until I can decide whether I want to continue with the ribbing, go back and do more stockinette, or if I just want to leave it as is and see if it'll grow when I block it. So that, again, is the Fern and Feather by Jennifer Steingass, knit with Polka Dot Creek Moss and the Natural colorway. Living in my Shannon, I think it's called the extra tall bucket, not bucket bag, extra tall, ooh, gracious, I can't remember the name of it, but like everything that I talk about will be linked in the description box below. I quite enjoy Jennifer Steingass patterns. I have one already that I completed, and for the life of me I can't remember the name of it. Again, I'll link it below, but really, really enjoy her patterns. The color work is quite simple. I'm a relatively new color work knitter, so I do have trouble keeping my tension loose enough with the floats. So I in this particular pattern, I went up a needle size, as well as sort of tried to relax as I was knitting it. So we'll hopefully see when I block it how well I actually did with that. So I'm happy with where I'm at with it. I just want to make sure, I know it's not going to be perfect, but I do want to make sure that I've done a better job with this one than I have with my previous Jennifer Steingast pattern. And that is it for what are you at? So those were the, those were the two things that I was working on. I have two finished objects. One of them, spoiler alert, we've already seen one of these already. I can knit these up fairly quickly. I knit this up last night in an hour or so. I just wanted a little bit of a palette cleanser. I wanted to be knitting, but I did not want to have to think, so I can do these with my eyes closed. And I just realized that I did not bring my Christmas socks down. So if I have the opportunity, I'll take a photo and I'll put it in here. If not, I'll show them to you on my next podcast. I've talked about this in the past. I have a toe-up pattern that I follow, a vanilla sock pattern, where I do a Turkish cast on for 16 stitches, increase to 72 stitches on a 2mm needle. I knit the tube as long as I like the tube, then I do a 2x2 rib, cast off, and then go back and do an afterthought heel. I have a pair of Christmas socks that my best friend gave me the yarn for my birthday. My birthday's in November. So I started those before Christmas, and I'm just on to the second sock now. I don't know, partway up the foot. So I will show those to you next time. And like I said, if I have the opportunity, I'll post a picture here, but they're not that exciting. It's not like you're missing much. The other finished object that I wanted to share, there's many of them. I think I've done 8 so far. My kids have commandeered 2 of them. I took 1, and I believe I have 5 left. I still want to make some more. These are bookmarks that I have crocheted for my book club. I'm part of 2 book clubs. One of them is in my public library. The nearest public library to me, I go, I think it's one Wednesday a month. I can't remember which one it is, the first Wednesday or the second Wednesday of the month. And our librarian picks out books for us, and then we obviously go away and we read them, and then we come back and we have a chat about the books. The best part about it is that it is a very diverse cross-section of individuals and backgrounds, and I love the conversation that happens when we talk about the book for 5 minutes, and then the rest of the hour we end up telling stories and relating to one another and just really enjoying each other's company, and I quite enjoy that. So there's, most of the time, there's anywhere between 4 and 8 people in that group, and I wanted to make a series of bookmarks so that I could share those with them. The second book club I am part of there's 4 women, just myself and 3 other women, and we read, essentially one of us picks a book and then we host that month, and we serve snacks and have all kinds of fun things and chat about the book. Same thing, we chat about the book for like 5-10 minutes, and then the rest of the time that we spend together is just catching up and being friends and really enjoying each other's company. So those are the 2 book clubs that I'm part of, and that is why I wanted to make these. So I'll show you, hopefully I'll show you one of them up close, a little closer than I might need to stand up for this one. So it's a little flower motif, and then it's a long chain. These are crocheted, a long chain, and then like there's a little, I don't know if you can see the little like knob on the end of it. There we go. There's, so the flower on one end and then the knob on the other. And then what you do is you sort of place that in between your book pages. And then when you close your book, the flower hangs out one end and then the little nub hangs out the bottom. They take absolutely no time to make, and they're quite lovely. I've gotten, like I said, I made 8, but I've used 1 and my kids have commandeered 1 each. So I have 5 left. So I want to make at least probably another 8 for my book club group to make sure that everybody can get one. But yeah, I've got some lovely colors. I've made them in green and this cream color, this beautiful sort of teal, maybe like not a sky blue, but like a grayish blue, this beautiful mustard. I love the mustard color, and another cream colored white one. So really enjoying making those. The other colors, I did make a red one, I believe, that my son has commandeered, and I believe my daughter took a blue one of these blue colors. I can't quite remember. Anyway, so those are the bookmarks that I've made. I cannot remember the name of the pattern that I used for these. I do know it's on Ravelry, and I do know that it's free. I just can't remember. So what I'll do is I'll look it up, and then I'll put it in the description box in the just below this video, so you can go take a look at that if you'd like. I just love that my love of books and my love of yarn related projects get to come together. And it started because I wanted a bookmark and I couldn't find one, and I was sick of using napkins and receipts. So I thought I would just make one for myself. And then I thought, what a lovely gift that would be to give to some of my friends in my book loving community. So that was my plan for that. So that is the segment called Yes Buy. The next segment is called Twacking. Twacking is where I talk about the things that I have been buying, or shopping for. So in Newfoundland, twacking is to be window shopping without any intention of buying. I will share that I have purchased a significant number of books this year. I have found my new favorite bookstore. It's a bookstore on Vancouver Island in Parksville, and it's called Fireside Books. I've never actually visited there. I haven't been to Vancouver Island in years, but I found that they do online shopping as well as deliveries. So if your purchase is more than $90, they will deliver for free, or they'll ship for free. And if you know me at all, you know that purchasing $90 worth of books is very easy for me to do. So I ended up purchasing multiple batches and have purchased many, many, many books. I will not go through the haul because quite honestly it will take way too long, and I don't even know, I've got them all shelved and put away already, so I don't even know where they are or where I purchased them. The other online shopping that I've been doing is a used and new bookstore in Calgary, Alberta, which is a little bit more local to me. It's called Pages in Kensington. They also do online, and they will ship to you. I believe they have a flat rate shipping, so I end up just driving to the city. I'm in the city once every 3 weeks anyway, so I just pick up my books from there so that we don't need to ship them. But absolutely loving that I can do that. I really enjoy buying used books, and I love perusing used bookstores, but I also like the convenience of the fact, like, I can sit on my phone or my computer and I can find books that are used and give them a second life, and I can, stick them in my bookshelves and keep them at home. And I'll share a little bit of my to be read list. My TBR was 3 or 4 books before I found these 2 websites. And since coming across these 2 websites, my TBR is a massive mountain. Like, it is Mount Everest of TBR. It's so large I actually just have to keep it virtually and keep my books stashed away in the bookshelves, because otherwise it would topple over. It has grown significantly in the last few months. So that's what I've been shopping for and buying. And it's also what I've been spending most of my time doing. I have been doing a little bit of knitting, a little bit of crochet, but a lot of reading. So I wanted to share, quite honestly, a massive list of books that I have read since the last time we spoke. But before I do that, I just realized the next segment that I'm going to skip over because I don't have anything to speak about in it is called Now to Once. Now to Once is a phrase, again, in Newfoundland, which describes what you're going to be up to. So what do you plan on doing now to once? So I generally talk about sort of my upcoming knitting and my upcoming projects, the things that I have kind of on the back of my mind. Quite honestly, to be fully transparent, it's finishing those bookmarks and finishing my Fern and Feather sweater. Feather and Fern, Fern and Feather. So that's my plan for, I don't have anything sort of on the back burner for knitting or crochet related things. I am fully focused on finishing the things that I've started, and then quite honestly reading. So I'm going to spend a fair bit of time doing that as well. So I'm going to list them off, and then I'm going to sort of share the title and the author of the book, and then whether I liked the book or not. I'm not going to share any details about any of the story, unless it's one that really grabbed me, which I have a couple in mind that I do want to talk about. These books I've either read them for like a hard copy, like a paper copy, for my book club at the library, my girls' book club, or on my own, or it's been an audiobook that I've listened to. So I will share sort of what medium I used to consume the material as well, so that you're aware of kind of how I consume my books. I always have a book in hand as well as an audiobook on the go. I do drive to and from my kids' schools, not often, but often enough that it makes a bit of difference, and I can get an audiobook done in a couple of weeks. So I do like to have one on the go in case I'm doing any extra driving. And like I shared already, every 3 weeks I'm in the city, and that's an hour drive to and from where I live. So that's 2 hours worth of listening. And I'm not a massive fan of the radio, so I do quite enjoy audiobooks for that purpose. All right, without further ado, the title of this segment is called Jigs and Reels. Jigs and Reels are songs and dances and sort of fun times in Newfoundland. So the reason I sort of chose it for this topic was because this is what I'm up to. This is what I'm either watching, listening to, or reading, kind of what I'm doing for fun. So between the jigs and the reels, between the songs and the dances, that's kind of where that comes from. So the first book was The Sixth Wedding by Ellen Hildebrand. It was I think it was the small sequel, like a novella sequel that followed 28 Summers. I devoured that in no time. I enjoyed that book. I read that one, I believe I read that one in paperback. I may have listened to that on audio. I can't quite remember. It was a while ago. The second book was The Menopause Manifesto by Dr. Jen Gunter. That book I know I listened to on audiobook. For anyone, any female, period, I think should listen to this book. Anyone who has experienced menopause or menopause type symptoms or perimenopause, any males who have people in their lives that might want a better understanding of menopause, I really enjoyed that book. It helped me through a lot of my menopause symptoms that I was having due to my medically induced menopause. Again, if you're looking for more health-related information, you can go to previous videos, and I share a little bit in each one. The third book was Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. The first two I read on my own volition, so those were two choices that I made. Brave New World was a book club book from my library. That was, again, by Aldous Huxley. It wasn't my favorite. Not a big fan of dystopian books, period. That's not my favorite genre. I'm glad I read it. I can sort of put it in my pocket to say, like, I've read this one, and I wouldn't read it again. Again, dystopia, that sort of thing is just not my jam. The next one was a recommendation from my library's book club, but not a requirement for it. It was called State of Fear by Michael Crichton. It's essentially a book about global warming and a group of individuals that are attempting to expose another group. Anyway, so I won't get too much detail in it, but I quite enjoyed that book. The next is All the Light We Cannot See. That was a book that I read of my own volition. It's set in World War II. I don't know if I've ever spoken about this before, but World War II and historical fiction, but specifically World War II, is hands down my favorite genre of all time. If you're writing a book about World War II, I would want to read it. I've already read it, or it's on my TBR for sure. I'm really a big fan of those books and that genre specifically. So All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr, I believe is how you pronounce his name. Really enjoyed this book. I quite enjoyed it. Again, it was set in World War II, and there were two different perspectives that were shown, or that were discussed in the book. One was from a teenage girl and the other from a young boy, a young German boy. And lovely stories, heartbreaking, heartwarming, all in the same book, and I really enjoyed that. Apples Never Fall by Leanne Moriarty. This book I listened to, again, of my own volition, so it wasn't recommended by anybody. It was just a book that was available at my library at the time, and I just wanted something that I could listen to. Enjoyed this book. Won't say too much more about it. The next one, also an audiobook that I listened to, called Bookshops and Bone Dust by Travis Baldree. Also, I'll just jump right over. I am currently listening to the second book, technically the first book in the series. Bookshops and Bone Dust is considered 0 in the series, and then Legends and Lattes is considered book number 1. Travis Baldree actually wrote Legends and Lattes and then wrote Bookshops and Bone Dust, which is a prequel to Legends and Lattes. I did not enjoy Bookshops and Bone Dust. I read it, or I listened to it. I wanted to really like it, and I'm not certain if it was because of the narration or the story or the writing. I felt it was a little bit overwritten to move forward a couple of months to where I now am, and I'm listening to Legends and Lattes. Same author, same narrator, same sort of medium. I'm really enjoying this one, so there's something about Bookshops and Bone Dust that sort of rubbed me the wrong way, and I can't quite pinpoint what it was, but really enjoying Legends and Lattes by the same author. The next was a biography. I think it's a biography. What are they called when it's, the word escapes me, but you'll all yell at it when I start to explain what it is. It's called Life Among the Savages by Shirley Jackson. She writes about her life and as a mother, and a mother with, I think she ends up having 4 kids. Really, really well done and really relatable for me, so I quite enjoyed that. The next was The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I listened to that one again. Oh, and I listened to Life Among the Savages as well. The Song of Achilles also was an audiobook that I listened to. Again, I enjoyed it. It wasn't exactly what I expected. I felt like there was a lot of build-up and then like a very sharp ending, which I wasn't really prepared for. I kind of hoped for a bit more conclusion, as opposed to like, it felt like 97% of the book was the build-up and then the last 3% was the end, which felt like it didn't do the book justice. That was kind of my thoughts on that one. The next, looks like I put all my audiobooks in one row. So next is another audiobook that I listened to of my own volition. It came as a recommendation from my neighbor, A Place to Hang the Moon by Kate Albus. Set in World War II from the perspective of 3 orphans that were shipped away. So if you're not familiar, when the Germans started bombing London, actually before they started bombing London, when they were threatening to go to war with England, the English, especially in large cities, specifically London, started shipping their children to the country so that they would be more safe. And these 3 children were shipped to a small town or a small hamlet where they were sent to be safe, but they were also orphans, and it gave a little bit of a unique perspective. Sorry about that, everyone. So I was talking about A Place to Hang the Moon by Kate Albus. I don't know where I left off, but it's about 3 orphans end up in the country in England, and it's from their perspective. I absolutely loved this book. Like I said, I will read anything about World War II. I really enjoyed this particular book because of the perspective of the children. A lot of books are written, obviously, from the perspective of a spy or a German soldier, or from a Jewish prisoner, a Jewish camp prisoner, why can't it, prisoner of war? Why can't I think about the title? Anyway, it's usually, these stories are usually written from adults' perspectives. This one was written from a child's perspective, and I loved it, absolutely loved it. So highly recommend that if you're interested in that. I've already spoken about Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. I listened to that one as well. Another one I listened to that I just finished was The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. Enjoyed that book. Won't say too much more about it. The Book Club Hotel was a book club choice from my female family, like our friends' book club. It was a bit of a fluffy read. We read it throughout the summer. Actually, now that I think about it, I might have already spoken about it on here, but I enjoyed it. Again, it was light. I can't even tell you what it was about, but it was good. I liked it. The Women by Kristen Hanna. So I just want to state I'm a big fan of Kristen Hanna. One of my favorite books of all time is The Nightingale. Okay, seriously, third time's the charm. I told you it's been a while. I didn't change my battery pack. I didn't check to make sure my memory card wasn't full. Anyway, big fan of Kristen Hanna. I really loved The Nightingale. It's one of my favorite books of all time. But The Women was missing something for me. I read it. It was readable. I liked it. I would not read it again, and I probably wouldn't recommend anyone else read it either. For me, it just lacked something. I can't tell you what that something was, but I just did not enjoy it. So I liked it. I didn't love it. I was expecting to love it, and I think that might have been part of the problem, was I had sort of built this book up to be something massive because of all the recommendations and all the 5-star reviews and all the things that had been going around, circling around it. So maybe I was let down because I had too many expectations, but again, liked it, didn't love it, won't read it again, but that was The Women by Kristen Hanna. Then local author was a guest at our library book club. His name is Gary Ryan, local sort of, so he's from Calgary, Alberta, and he came to our book club meeting, and I read 3 books by him. The one for our book club was called Blackbird. The second was called Two Blackbirds. The third is called Three Blackbirds, and it's a female protagonist in World War II. She is a flight, what would you call, I can't remember what she's called, but basically she delivers aircraft, and absolutely loved it. I love the fact that it was a local author. Again, if it's anything about World War II, I'll probably read it if I haven't already. I loved it. I loved all 3 of those books. Denison Avenue was another library book club choice. Denison Avenue by Christina Wong and Daniel Innes. Did not like that book. I felt like it lacked a story. To be fair, I hated it. I did not enjoy it at all. It follows a lady who is in Toronto. Yeah, I won't get into it. I just didn't enjoy it at all. The Cellist of Sarajevo by Stephen Galloway, I did enjoy. The Once and Future World by J.B. McKinnon, I tolerated. Spare by Prince Harry and J.R. Moringer, I listened to. How did I not talk about this one yet? I can't believe it's been since my last podcast that I read that book. Anyway, I really enjoyed that book. I liked the perspective. I liked the story. It's his life, but I quite enjoyed that book. It's a bit of a conversation topic. Some people love it, some people hate it. Some people are fans of Prince Harry, some people are not. The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna, another unpopular opinion about to drop. I did not like this book. I liked the story. So it's set in Alaska. A family moves from the lower 48 up to Alaska, and it's about their struggles in Alaska. I will say there should have been, and every review I read, there was nothing about it, but there should have been a trigger warning for domestic abuse. I found it really tough to read because there is domestic abuse in the book. Again, liked it, didn't love it. I probably would have loved it had it not had the domestic abuse component. I feel like the story could have been written almost identically without the domestic abuse issue. All Good People Here by Ashley Flowers. It was a mystery, sort of a whodunit. I, again, liked it. Didn't love it, didn't hate it, just liked it, and it was a book club read for our library book club. These are all paper copy books that I've been reading. The Last Bookshop in London, I read this for my book club library. I also had listened to it previous to our book club choice. So I read this book twice, but I listened to it the first time and then I read it with the paper copy the second time. I loved it both times. I loved it in both mediums. It's a book about World War II, and it's about a bookshop that is still standing after the Blitz. And yeah, I absolutely loved it. I loved the characters. I loved there's two characters that have a relationship, not a relationship, but like a sort of like a father-daughter relationship, and they are absolutely lovely together. I love their dynamic together, and I would read that book I'd probably read it once a year for the rest of my life. I loved it so much. The Lost Bookshop by Evie Woods and Evie Gahn. Really enjoyed this book. This book, I won't get into too much detail because it's my book club pick, or it's our book club pick for this month. So we're meeting on Friday to discuss it. But really fun, a little fantasy, but not too much fantasy, just really quite fun and enjoyable. One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig. I'm not really a huge fantasy reader. I absolutely devoured these books. I think I read one in one day and the other in 2 days. I absolutely loved these books. I love the fact that it's a series, so it's a duology, I guess it would be called. Because the two stories, it's like a series of books, one follows the other. I loved it. I loved that the story could be told in 2 books, and I also hated the fact that it was over in 2 books. So I'm not a big fan of reading 7, 8, 9 book series. I just usually choose to avoid those types of series and commitments because I find that once you're committed, then you're in there and then you can't get out. So this one was lovely, that the fact that you could read these 2 books that were so captivating, and I just thought really well written. The story was great. The magic was great. The characters were great. And they were quick reads and they were wrapped up within 2 books. Lovely. Loved those. So that was One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig. The Book of Lost Names by Kristen Harmel. Harmel? Don't know why that was so hard for me. The Book of Lost Names is another World War II story about a woman and a co-worker of hers that are trying to capture the names of the Jewish children that are being what's the word when you emigrate? I can't remember, but when they were crossing the Swiss border, so they were getting them new identities and they were forging their identities, but then they were also capturing their names in a book with a code. Quite well done. Really loved it. Again, just absolutely love anything with World War II. You sensing a theme here. The next one was Broken Country. Oh, and yeah, all of these last ones are just of my own volition. So unless I say otherwise, it's just books that I've chosen to read. The next is Broken Country by Claire Leslie Hall. I think this is another example of where I really, really, really wanted to love it. I liked it, didn't love it. I enjoyed the book, think the characters are lovely, think the book was well written, the story was captivating. It does go from like today into the past, or like maybe not today, but like anyway, 1976 into 1992 or something. Like there's a time difference, so you sort of have to pay attention based on what chapter you're reading, where you are in time. Again, I liked it, didn't love it, but I think it was because I had sort of had it built up to be such a big deal and I was really excited about reading it, that I kind of had myself... This is why I don't read the backs of books. I don't watch movie trailers. This is why, because I end up getting it so ramped up in my head that by the time I end up watching the movie or reading the book, I'm disappointed. So I try not to do that. The Good Women of Safe Harbor by Bobby French. I loved this book. The Good Women of Safe Harbor is about a woman who is given a diagnosis of a brain tumor, and she chooses to not to undergo any treatment. And it's her story of her last days. Again, didn't read anything about it. It came recommended to me by my aunt. I thought, sure, I'll give it a go. that was probably 2-3 years ago she told me to read it. I finally purchased a copy of it, and I am so glad I did. I read it in a day and a half. I absolutely loved it. I thought I was going to be triggered with the cancer diagnosis and the fact that she was choosing not to undergo treatment. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. She is from a rural town in Newfoundland. She ends up leaving when she's sort of early 20s, late teens, early 20s. She moves to the city, to St. John's. I love the fact that it was about rural Newfoundland, but it wasn't about all of the like despair and the shipwrecks and all the things that typically are written about when you're talking about rural Newfoundland. Loved this book. Absolutely loved it. Pick it up, get it from your library, go get it somewhere. I loved it. But again, be forewarned, there's a trigger of this woman does die in the book. That's the whole point. It's her last days, and it is a cancer diagnosis, so just be forewarned about that. The Book Lover's Library by Madeline Martin. I think I could read anything by this woman and just devour it all. I loved this story. I loved the characters. I loved the writing. It's set in World War II, surprise. Basically anything that's World War II, has a bookstore or has a library or has tea. And in this book, it had all of those things. And a female protagonist. Like, I'm hook, line, and sinker. I absolutely loved it. Just felt warm, and I know set in World War II, not ideal, but just the way that the story unfolds, and there's a little bit of romance. It's not in your face. It's not really smutty. Just loved it. I absolutely loved it. It's exactly my style. I'm currently still reading A Better Man by Louise Penny. I always have a Louise Penny book on the go. She writes the Armand Gamache series, which I'm hook, line, and sinker into. I will buy every book by Louise Penny always. The Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis and Pauline Baynes. My children and I are reading these books, so we are going through them and reading them like a chapter at a time. They're a little bit heavy for my 5-year-old. She said, "Mom, I think these chapters are a bit too long." So we're sort of putting those on hold for now, but my 7-year-old is really into it. The Wild Robot, both kids are into this one, so we're reading The Wild Robot by Peter Brown. I'm enjoying that. We sit together just after they get out of the tub or right after supper and we read a chapter or two. They're loving it. I'm loving it. We've watched the movie. It's a really well done movie. So far we're loving the book, but really quite enjoy that, and I love spending my time with my kids to read those ones. Another one by Madeline Martin, called The Keeper of Hidden Books. I'm only, 100 pages or so in. Really liking it. It's from the perspective of a Polish girl who is trying to hide sort of the works of art and the books that they want to keep from the Nazis who are going around collecting all books, including personal collections, library books, and then burning them. So she's trying to hide some of the sort of most prized possessions. And then the last one I'm reading is a book club book for my library called The Collected Works of Grey Owl by Grey Owl. I read the first chapter of the first book and the first chapter of the third book. There are 3 books in the series, or 3 books in the Collected Works. Not liking it. Finding it a big slog to get through anything. I don't know if I'll finish reading it. I'm of the mindset that life is too short to read books that you don't like. So I'm not sure that I'll even continue, but we shall see. I might give it like another chapter or 2 to see if it catches me, but right now I'm finding it, like I said, to be a hard slog, trying to keep your head up while you're trying to read these words and getting through a page in 20 minutes when it normally takes me, 20 seconds to read a page. Anyway, I'm finding that one really, really challenging, and I'm not even sure I'm going to finish it. So that was Jigs and Reels. It was a big, big, big section. Like I said, there's a ton of books here that I've read or are reading, and my kind of thoughts on those. The next segment is Best Kind. I should also just sort of apologize in advance. I guess it's not in advance now that I've already done that section. I should apologize if I feel like I've rushed through it. So if you felt like I rushed through it, I'm sincerely sorry. I knew that there was a ton of content and I wanted to get through it. before my memory card got full or my battery died again. So yeah, my apologies if that seemed like it was a little rushed. But like I said, I had a ton of content in that particular segment, and I wanted to make sure I was able to cover it all. The next segment is called Best Kind, and this is where I talk about things, again, in Newfoundland, it's a phrase where you use it as like an adjective to describe somebody or something. So that restaurant is the best kind, that person is the best kind. You know, do you know Judy? Oh my gosh, I love Judy. She's the best kind. That's sort of where that comes from. So the context I use it is things that fill up my cup. And there's a few things that I wanted to mention today. One being this podcast, getting back in front of the camera, even if it is a little bit sparse, so to speak. So like my content might be sparse, my links and all the extra work that I generally do, like putting up titles and all that sort of stuff, that might be a little bit sparse. I'm really enjoying just getting my feet wet again and doing this. Just getting in front of the camera is really good for me and my mental health. Second is my ongoing treatment with my clinical team. So I have been referred to a social worker, and now she's going to be referring me on to some other psychosocial oncology professionals that are going to be able to help me with the rest of my treatment journey. So now that I am technically considered no evidence of disease, which is great news, meaning the cancer is no longer detectable in my body from my last scan that we had in January, I'm able to kind of focus on like my mind and my brain and getting myself back to a healthy mental state. With that comes a lot of things like my ability to sleep, the management of arthritis symptoms, all kinds of things like that. So that's been a really big help for me, just even knowing that referral is waiting for me. The other is the act of knitting and the enjoyment that I get from reading. So I've always kind of got something. If it, you know, when I had arthritis symptoms, like my hands were doing really poorly, I wasn't able to knit, and I was really down about that. So I picked up some books that was able to kind of fill that gap. Now I'm like watching podcasts, knitting, and doing books, and I'm like, I don't even have enough time for all of it because I'm getting so much joy from those activities. There was one other thing that I wanted to mention that I didn't write down that just came to me, and now I've forgotten. I've got a lot of joy in my life. I've got a lot to be thankful for. I'm really grateful for where I am and how far I've come, and being able to look back and see where I was, even quite literally, physically, not long ago, I had no hair. So the visual of doing these videos and seeing the progression, it just really helps me along my journey. And like I said, I'm really enjoying this part of the journey. I didn't quite enjoy all of the parts of the journey. To be fully transparent, they're not all fun and games. But I'm really enjoying where I'm at. And like I said, I've got a lot of gratitude for where I'm at today. There was something else, but it's one of the things I'm not grateful for is the effect that all of this stuff has had on my memory, being able to recall words or things. Like, if I don't write it down, it didn't happen. So it's terrible. But yeah, that's just happens to be where I'm at. So I'm going to meet myself where I'm at. Then we have the final outro, which I will quite honestly just read, because every time I try to say it without having some sort of prompt, I always screw it up. So until next time, keep living your best life and filling up your cup. And I will see you in 2 weeks. I'm going to try my very best to stay on that. Until then, stay where you're to till I comes where you're at. Bye.